Regulatory compliance has become a critical factor for sustainable business operations. This presentation explores the multifaceted world of business regulations, providing insights into navigating the increasingly complex regulatory landscape. We'll examine current frameworks, implementation strategies, and emerging trends that are reshaping how organizations approach compliance. Understanding these elements is essential for turning regulatory requirements from potential obstacles into strategic advantages. The regulatory landscape has evolved dramatically, with UK businesses facing an annual compliance cost of £12.3 billion. The burden is increasing, with 94% of FTSE 100 companies reporting growth in compliance requirements. The impact is significant, as all business functions are affected by regulatory frameworks. With compliance costs continuing to rise, organisations must develop strategies to meet these challenges effectively and ensure compliance advantage. The UK regulatory environment consists of 12 primary bodies, each with distinct but sometimes overlapping jurisdictions. This complex ecosystem requires businesses to navigate multiple relationships and understand varying requirements simultaneously. Post-Brexit, many regulators have seen their powers and independence increase, creating new compliance challenges for businesses operating across multiple sectors. Several key regulatory frameworks govern corporate structure, duties, and reporting requirements for all UK businesses. These include the Companies Act, Financial Services and Markets Act, Consumer Rights Act, and Employment and Health and Safety legislation. Understanding these frameworks forms the regulatory backbone for UK business operations, ensuring that compliance is essential for addressing effective compliance programs that address core obligations. Beyond the universal frameworks, sector-specific regulations add layers of complexity for businesses operating in regulated industries. These targeted requirements often involve specialised compliance expertise and dedicated resources. The regulatory burden varies significantly across sectors, with financial services, healthcare, and energy typically facing the most intensive oversight and compliance requirements. Effective compliance programs are built on fundamental elements, creating a comprehensive approach that addresses both regulatory requirements and ethical considerations. The 3 lines of defence model, operational management, risk and compliance functions, and internal audit, provides a structured framework for managing compliance requirements. Risk assessment methodologies help organisations prioritise their compliance efforts, focusing resources where they have the greatest impact in mitigating potential regulatory breaches. The consequences of non-compliance extend far beyond immediate financial penalties. The combination of regulatory action, market reaction, and potential personal liability creates a compelling case for robust compliance programmes. Financial penalties, reputational damage, personal liability, and criminal penalties are significant risks that organisations face when compliance failures occur. Addressing these risks is essential for maintaining business integrity and avoiding costly repercussions. Effective governance structures create the foundation for successful compliance. The integration of compliance considerations into core governance frameworks ensures appropriate attention and resources for regulatory requirements. The evolving UK Corporate Governance Code continues to raise expectations for board engagement with compliance matters, particularly in relation to culture and conduct. This integration is crucial for aligning compliance with strategic objectives and ensuring accountability at all levels. Effective compliance programs are tailored to the specific needs and risks of the organisation. A one-size-fits-all approach typically fails to address the unique regulatory challenges faced by different business models and sectors. Program design, risk-based resource allocation, controls framework development, and training and technology implementation are key components that ensure compliance efforts are aligned with organisational priorities and regulatory requirements. A structured risk assessment methodology forms the foundation of effective compliance programs. By systematically evaluating inherent and residual risks, organisations can direct resources to the most critical areas and avoid wasting effort on low-impact compliance activities. The determination of risk appetite, how much regulatory risk an organisation is willing to accept, is a crucial board-level decision that should align with overall business strategy and objectives. Successful implementation requires careful consideration of organisational structure, culture, and monitoring mechanisms. The compliance function's position in the organisation significantly impacts its effectiveness and influence. Attestation and certification processes create accountability and documentary evidence of compliance efforts, which can be critical during regulatory examinations or investigations. Embedding compliance considerations into everyday business decisions and processes is essential for achieving long-term compliance success. Technology is transforming compliance from a labor-intensive function to a data-driven discipline. The most advanced programs leverage technology not only to monitor compliance, but to predict potential issues before they occur. Integration challenges remain significant, with many organizations struggling to connect legacy systems with new compliance technologies. Investment in compliance technology now represents approximately 35% of total compliance budgets for large organizations, demonstrating its critical role in modern compliance strategies. Data protection continues to be one of the most significant compliance challenges for UK businesses. The UK GDPR and Data Protection Act 2018 create extensive obligations for organisations collecting and processing personal data. The Information Commissioner's Office has adopted an increasingly assertive enforcement approach, with substantial penalties for breaches. Organisations must implement comprehensive privacy frameworks, avoiding everything from lawful basis for processing to data subject rights. Recent sanctions developments following the Russia-Ukraine conflict have created unprecedented compliance challenges for organisations. Companies must implement risk-based systems capable of adapting to rapidly changing requirements. Financial crime costs the UK economy £100 billion annually, with money laundering, terrorist financing, sanctions evasion, and fraud representing significant threats. The regulatory framework for combating these crimes continues to expand and strengthen. Environmental compliance has evolved from a niche concern to a core business requirement. The UK's commitment to net zero carbon emissions by 2050 is creating increasingly stringent obligations for businesses of all sizes. Beyond legal requirements, investor and customer pressure for environmental responsibility continues to grow, making environmental compliance a vital area where formal regulation is still developing. Streamlined energy and carbon reporting frameworks require detailed documentation of carbon footprint. Employment regulation remains one of the most complex compliance challenges for UK businesses. From wage setting and minimum wage requirements to complex equality regulations, these regulations affect daily operations and require continuous attention. Recent focus on contractor management under IR35 has created additional compliance burdens, particularly for organisations relying on flexible workforce arrangements. Organisations with turnover exceeding £36 must publish annual statements outlining steps taken to ensure supply chains are slavery-free. Extraterritorial regulations, those that apply beyond national boundaries, create particularly complex compliance challenges. US, UK and EU regulations increasingly reach across borders, requiring sophisticated compliance capable of addressing potentially conflicting requirements. For multinational businesses, navigating regulatory requirements across jurisdictions presents significant challenges. With 175 countries now having data protection laws alone, the complexity of cross-border compliance continues to increase. Regulatory reporting requirements continue to expand in both volume and complexity. Organisations face increasing expectations for transparency across multiple regulated sectors. The integration of these diverse reporting requirements into cohesive frameworks represents a significant challenge, particularly for organisations operating across multiple regulated sectors. Financial reporting, non-financial disclosures, operational reporting, and breach notification are critical components that require careful management and strategic alignment. Regulatory investigations have increased by 17% since 2020, creating a challenging environment for businesses. Preparation is critical, with well-developed response protocols essential for managing investigations, information requests, and formal investigations. Legal privilege considerations must be carefully managed throughout the investigation process. The appropriate level of cooperation with authorities requires careful balancing of transparency and protection of legitimate business interests. A strong compliance culture transforms regulatory requirements from external impositions to embedded values. Organisations with effective compliance cultures experience fewer incidents and more positive regulatory relationships. Leadership commitment and embedding methods are crucial for creating this culture. The tone from the top remains fundamental to compliance culture, with board and executive messaging setting the standard for the organisation. Equally important is the tone from the middle, where managers translate high-level compliance values into practical everyday guidance for their teams. To effectively measure compliance effectiveness, organizations must focus on key performance indicators, benchmarking, regulatory relationships, and maturity models. By developing meaningful metrics, assessing performance against industry peers, and understanding regulatory relationships, companies can identify strengths and areas for improvement. Maturity models help in applying structured frameworks to assess compliance sophistication across multiple dimensions, ensuring a balanced assessment framework. The regulatory landscape is constantly evolving, with new frameworks emerging in response to technological and market developments. AI governance, ESG disclosure, consumer duty, and crypto regulation are key trends shaping the future. Organizations must develop effective horizon scanning capabilities to anticipate and adapt to these changes, ensuring integrated compliance approaches across multiple regulatory domains. Effective compliance programs must incorporate forward-looking elements that anticipate regulatory developments. The 2025 pipeline, EU divergence, international coordination, and financial framework are significant trends visible on the horizon. Geopolitical developments continue to influence the regulatory landscape, with international tensions creating compliance challenges, particularly in areas like finance and digital markets. To future-proof compliance programs, organizations should adopt agile methodologies, invest in technology, focus on talent development, and implement change management strategies. This approach ensures adaptability to regulatory changes and emerging risks, while fostering innovation and strategic alignment within the compliance framework. Effective regulatory compliance has evolved from a necessary burden to a potential source of competitive advantage. By adopting a proactive stance, organizations can navigate the increasingly complex regulatory landscape, turning potential changes into opportunities for growth. Strategic advantage, integrated approach, technology enablement, cultural embedding, and proactive stance are essential elements for sustainable compliance success.